Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I am your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Mike Giuttari, current law enforcement officer, SWAT team leader / sniper, a former United States Coast Guard ME1, and a firearms and tactical trainer, USPSA competitive shooter as well, and the owner and founder of One Shot Defense. I'll have links to his socials in the show description. Today's episode is brought to you by the Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group helps you restore balance, unlock vitality through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a board-certified physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. So he has the shared background. He knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor who can prescribe you actual medicine. So if HRT, TRT, hormone replacement therapy, peptides, if this is something you've been thinking about for a while now, or just looking into, look no further than Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. I will have links to their socials and website in the show description, along with Mike and One Shot Defense. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Mike Giuttari, welcome to Lesser Known Operators, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, bro.
No, absolutely. And not to get too off topic right away, but as I said, I didn't want to be that illiterate drill sergeant and fuck your name up right off the bat. So I think I got pretty close there, as you said.
You got it right. Giuttari, yeah.
As I said, I've come across some really bad ones, and I've survived them all. So that's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like to mess up people's names. It's one of the only things that I have to get right as the host. So, fuck yeah, man! Thanks for coming on. As you said, your first time coming on a show, and I'm honored to have you here. And also, like a section of special operations that I didn't know existed. Really, I assumed the Coast Guard had something because there's always some higher level at all levels, but I didn't know. So I've heard good things about ME1s. I can't wait to get into it. So I'm appreciative you're here, man.
Yeah. Ask away.
No, man, fuck, we'll get into it. Yeah. So, but I do like, you'll I like when you go on live and you break down these firearm. You like taking them apart, and you're like, look at this little pin here. This little pin fits into this one, and it's only got 2.2 pounds. The other one has 2.25 pounds. Can you hear the difference? Can you guys hear it? Can you hear it? Man, you really get into it. Is this something that you've always had your whole life, or is it you kind of evolved into it when you got into into firearms?
So I've kind of always been a gun guy. I worked at a gun range early on when I was real young, and then my dad and I used to shoot all the time. And then I just the guns things just stuck with me throughout my law enforcement military career. And then I said, hey, I'm pretty good at it. Let me help everybody else. And then some people more detailed and analytical than others. I am very much that person. So I want to know specs. I want to know springs. Every gun I own, I want to know how to work on. And what I've found is that sometimes I can, lay it out nicely for people. And I just like the other people like me. I want to share the knowledge and get people interested in that. I call it gun of the week. So every week I try to grab a different gun or a piece of kit or a holster or something and just talk about it and go over it, the specs, why you want it, why do you need it, or you don't know you need it, but you do want it, whatever.
Are these, because some of these pieces that you're having on are very expensive. Are these things on loan, or do you own all these?
Both.
Okay.
The most expensive gun I've had on, which is the Atlas, that one's I believe 6,900 or something like that right out the gate, or maybe even 7,200 out the gate. That was a buddy of mine. He let me borrow it. But I do have two MPAs or masterpiece arms, and they're about $4,000 each.
Do you know, like, you got to be, when you get to a certain level, I've talked to other people, and they're like, you hold them in your hand, you're like, what's the difference between this one and that one? But it's got to be when you shoot it, right? Because you're getting to such a level where thousandths of a second are mattering in your, because you do compete as well.
Yeah, so I compete in USPSA or practical pistol shooting, and I mean I've only been doing it for about 2.5 years now. I just last month made it into the master class. So there's a ranking system. So you have D rank all the way up to A, and then you have M, which is master, and then GM, which is grandmaster, and those are like professional shooters that their whole job is to travel the country and or the world and shoot practical pistol uh, uh, matches, and for Staccato or for Glock or for all these different big name companies. But that takes a long time to get to. I've just basically dipping my feet into it, and it does, dude. The people win by tenths of seconds. The points are like by points, like literally decimal points. So the margin of error, like that's why you'll see in competition, you exploit every possible advantage you can get because it matters.
Yeah, I people will ask me about things, and the difference from amateur to professional in almost every sport is as wide as the Grand Canyon is, right? Because these professionals, I've got professional they're big name sponsors handing them the best weapons there are. They still have to know how to use it, but amateur doesn't always have that, and you got to shine just enough to where these sponsors want to hand you things that are very expensive and all of the benefits and all of these things. And you got clothes, which, if you're not comfortable, you might shoot like shit or something like that. So it all comes down to these little bitty advantages to where once you show enough skill, they're like, oh, we gotta take care of this guy. But except for
Yeah, to,
golf,
to
I've
get
always
there.
said that golf is one of those things that you can just show up and man, it could just be your day and you could beat everybody. Because some of those guys, it's unbelievable. You know, it's
Shooting similar. You can
fucking
have
hate.
great days and you can have shitty days.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like anything, right? But yeah, all that stuff. That's man. My buddy added me to a group chat, and they're all in there breaking down these different pistols and everything. It's like, man, I just am so far out of the life right now and not living it that I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about at all. Like it's like it looks cool in the pictures. It must be, it must be cool though. But I've forced myself into this more of a tech thing, which I don't understand at all, which is I'm lost every single day. But yeah, whenever you're on live, I jump on and I'm just looking at the phone going, man, this is how, so are you sitting down and studying the book before you're going breaking these weapons completely down?
No, I will do a bit of research just to get like, when did it come out and the exact specifications of trigger weight or the recoil spring they use, or uh, maybe their intent for the gun, the company's manufacturer's intent, how long the barrel is exactly, just to give detailed specs to the people that care. But for the most part, when I talk about a gun, it comes from the experience. If I don't have a lot of experience with the gun, I'll tell you right out the gate. But every gun I talk about, I take to the range. I do drills with. I put myself on time. I do reloads. I break it down, put it together, stuff like that, just so at least I don't look like a boob on camera. But a lot of critics.
Yeah, then it's forever. Then it's forever. And yeah, people will shit on you for no reason. You're like, girl, fucking, why don't you have this? Oh, shut the fuck up, dude. Um,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
why have you forced yourself from a hobby into more of a professional setting? Is it just the line of work that you're in, and to make you better at what your day job is, or what's the draw there for you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so when I got into law enforcement in 2010, and I went to the academy in 2009. I got hired in 2010, and then just from then on, in 2012, I went to SWAT school, and I was like, you're a new cop, you're getting your experience. You got a year or two on, you think you know everything or whatever, and then I went to SWAT school, and just the 2 weeks of school, I came out of that and was like, how did I operate in this job without going to this school as far as like safety is concerned or having a good understanding of tactics and stuff. It blew my mind that every basic cop doesn't know this stuff. So that really got me interested. Kind of like what you said earlier, the difference between a professional and an amateur is their knowledge of the little things. They do the little things right all the time, you know, and SWAT school really helps dial in those types of things, and it just forced me to go, wow, I should be like that with everything, and not only that, I should share it with everyone I can. They should be this good. They shouldn't have to operate at a lower level as far as just their basic law enforcement duties, because everyone says, oh, SWAT's dangerous and this and that. The most dangerous job by far is basic road patrol, and road patrol definitely does not get the level of training that they should for one reason or another, whether it's the people themselves who don't care, whether it's a money thing or a staffing thing or something. So they really don't put in the work themselves, and it's scary, man. I want them to go home safe, and sometimes they just don't put in that effort. So it forced me to want to do that. So then I started trying to shoot this was years have passed. I started in a competition wearing my regular duty belt and my regular duty gun and everything, and then I just wanted to get the best I could with that equipment, and I got pretty good. But then the competitive part of me took over, and now race holsters and race belts and the race guns, the whole setup got the better of me. But it definitely started out of the necessity to master my day job as a police officer.
You bound by a, what did they call it for us? You had to maintain your uniform to a certain specification. So are you bound by a standard SOP in your department, or were you able to modify things that you found helped you in your everyday job?
As far as equipment, or
Yeah, of changing stuff around and how you wore things or placement.
well, funny, that's a whole can of worms there. But I was always that guy. Um, I don't know what I can and can't say on the internet, but the gear blank. And I was, we'll just say the gear guy. And I was always that guy that went out, bought their own stuff, changed out
All of my
equipment, stuff.
listeners know exactly what all of my listeners know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. So
I figure if you're all military SWAT dudes and whatever, y'all understand. But I was always the guy that went out and I pushed the envelope. I'd buy my stuff and I put it on and I would use it, and I knew that it made me better. But the older guys in the agency and the lieutenants and captains and sergeants and chiefs of that time were like, "You can't do that. That's not approved. What are you doing with that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's better for this, and this." Well, listen, rookie, take that off, or else you get written up or whatever. And then I don't know, something big will happen, and then they'll come back to me and go, "Hey, what was that thing you had? That's a really good idea. We should get it for everybody." So then I'd have to write up a memo of what it is and the benefits and how much, and then we ended up buying it for everybody. So all throughout my career, I would always I was in a bad habit of buying my own stuff and getting in trouble for it sometimes, but eventually started to get the knowledge of how to change equipment the right way, putting in memos first, explaining it first, showing it first, getting it approved, and then luckily now I'm a training officer for my agency, and I have direct control of equipment and stuff like that to implement not only for the SWAT team but for road patrol as well. So I have helped bring a lot of change to my agency with the help of other guys as well, but a lot of change in equipment for the better. If it was up to the higher ups who grew up, this is what you get here, shut up. We'd still be like, vests under our shirt, whistle chains, Uncle Mike's crappy holsters and stuff. Like we'd still be back in the Stone Age.
the goal is always to rise to a position where you can impact meaningful change, right? Or that you care enough to even do that, to make that a goal, to get to a position where you can make a difference. And that's generational, and the generations keep getting smaller because of the advances in technology. And I would say for 100 years, you know, we were stuck with, hey, that's all. That's the way we always done it. That's the way we got to
Hmm.
continue to do it. And then I noticed with mine. So, I'm at, I didn't know this, but I just found out. If I was still in the army, I'm the very old guy now, like the very old guy on an SF team now. So that was interesting to learn. But everybody keeps getting younger, and so things are starting to switch over. But my peers have gotten out and started businesses for tactical gear, for even vests and slings and all these other things that help their job, and fitness programs, all kinds of stuff that they've started. Where that was possible because of social media and the internet and the rise of businesses where you can make a business from your basement and it can go all over the world. Well, that just wasn't a thing. So if it wasn't local or coming down from higher headquarters, you just didn't know about it. And especially if you're in
Hmm.
the fucking buttfuck town of nowhere and the chief has been the chief for 40 years, you're probably going to do things how they've always been done. And that's just how it's going to be. So, no, but then now it sounds like you're in a position to where you can make the rules as long as you're making them for everybody's best interest. Um, but things, that's how they change, right? Things, we want to improve things, so that's good. That's good. I want to go back. You said one thing. You learned so much when you went to SWAT school. How long was SWAT school?
Ours, the basic school was 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and you just learned just everything you thought you, or that you're like, what have I been doing with my life up until this point, basically.
I mean, it was basically every single day, 12-hour days, and it was shooting and force on force tactics, shooting, force on force, shooting, force on force, and it was just uh, every day for 2 weeks straight, and just understanding when you learn to get to a basic level of comprehension and building clearing, which again I'm sure you could equate, take a big army soldier who maybe just went to AIT and that was it, um, and then take an SF Green Beret who specializes in CQC or CQB, whatever you want to call it, or even the higher level, the SEALs and Delta, the higher levels that do CQB on a continuous basis. It's night and day. They can't even operate together because there's such a gap. Um, and I'm not saying to that like it's that crazy, but that's kind of what it felt like in my head. I was just like the way you walk up to doors, the way you walk up to cars, the way you approach a an alarm call where you have to check a business or a house, or you find an open door and you have to go in and check if there's a burglar or a bad guy in there. It's like just the way you approach that, my whole mindset changed for the better, and I was just blown away. Like, man, just 2 weeks of doing this every day, and look what you can learn with an open mind. So, it, yeah,
And
I mean,
it's once you start going to training, you realize how much you don't know. Uh, I start doing this. I realize I don't know shit about anything, uh, and I just have to work at it every day, and hopefully outwork uh, the voice in my head telling me to stop. Right? Like, we don't know what we're doing here. Ah, fuck it, we'll figure it out as we go. So I go back to that because you said being a patrol cop is the most dangerous role that you can have. And
absolutely.
from everybody I've had on here that's a police officer or law enforcement realm, training ranges from uh, 8 hours a month to 40 hours a year. And the one guy said 40 hours a year was optional. Is that pretty standard from what you were seeing as well?
No, all right. So training in and of itself encompasses, if you think about it in a law enforcement world, cops today are expected to be a little bit of everything. They're a jack of all trades and a master of none. I know there's more to the saying, but they have to be doctors, parents, therapists. They have to be social workers. They have to be, you know, uh, stone cold warriors. They also have to be lovable, touchy feely, hugging babies and stuff. They have to be car mechanics. They have to be snake wranglers, all this other stuff. So especially in a relatively smaller agency where maybe I don't have 100 different units that specialize, you have to do a little bit of everything. So we get a ton of training, at least at my agency, but it's not always focused training on the most important things that people need, if that makes sense. So like firearms training, you get, you'll do your qualifications once a year, and sometimes that's it if people don't seek outside training, or if they don't, if like we don't have enough in the budget to do a range day
Your
for the
budget.
whole agency.
That's the most. That's the most important part. There, it's got to be right. Budget. Some
Good
training is
word.
cheaper than others.
Right, and firearms training or defensive tactics training or driving training, all of these high liability trainings are always cost money, or they cost injury. And sometimes, agencies are risk adverse in that, like, oh, I don't want anyone to get hurt in training. The flip side of the coin is they're going to get hurt in real life, and I'd rather you get hurt in training than get hurt in real life. But the problem is you get hurt in training, they look at it like that's the training cadre, that's their fault that it happened, and that's not good. Versus they get their ass kicked on the street and they're like, well, that's just the price of doing business, and it should really be the other way around. you know but like you said, budget rules the world and money talks, especially in law enforcement. So if we don't have the money to do it this year or right now, or as to the extent that we'd like to do it, whether it be a staffing budgeting issue, overtime, whatever, then we're just not going to do it. But that also varies from agency to agency depending on the facility and the culture of that agency.
Did you feel while you were a patrolman for those 2 years that you were missing something? Did you know that you were missing something, or did you not figure that out until you went to SWAT training?
Well, so I was a patrolman for 8.5 years in my agency, because we are a relatively smaller agency. We If you're on the SWAT team, it's a dual role. So you're SWAT when you need to be, and then you do your normal day job, which for me was road patrol. So it was a collateral duty, so to speak. So you do your monthly training with the SWAT team, and then if you were called out or had a planned warrant or some type of operation, then you'd go and do that. But if you weren't doing that, you were working your road patrol shift, or some detectives or motormen or traffic officers would be on there. It all depends. But yeah, I did the road patrol for 8.5 years.
8.5 years, but you said at year two you went to do SWAT training, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
what was that? Oh, yeah. Prior to that point, did you know you were missing something, or did it only click when you went to that SWAT training?
Yeah. Only clicked after SWAT school. Not, especially nowadays. I mean, I'm technically, I guess I'm a millennial, but the best thing I like about being a millennial is knowing that I don't have to identify as a millennial. um, yeah, I grew up very old school, so I had a very different upbringing as far as my thought process and work ethic, and the way that I was raised. That um, type A, cocky. So after a year on the road, I was like, I know everything. I've seen it all. I'm ready to take on whatever. Um, but then I went to SWAT school, and it reinforced to me. It kind of humbled me to a degree that I didn't know shit. I had so much more to learn. Um, I would probably equate that military wise to someone who, hasn't deployed or hasn't seen combat or hasn't been in the shit of it and only done training. They could be cocky sometimes, and they could think that they're ready for the shit, and then actually the guys who have been through it and seen it, you can always tell the difference for the most part. A lot of them are more humble, more chill, kind of realize you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay.
What's something that stood out in your mind that when it was taught to you, you went, what the fuck am I been doing? What have I been doing this whole time?
Uh, I'm probably always going to go back to building clearing or, searching or building tactics, CQB, just learning how easy it is to, get shot from angles and positions and locations you never would have thought to look, you never would have considered. And that translates to everything. It translates to open area searches. It translates to traffic stops. Um, you know, uh, Talk about blue on blue. Talk about shooting. What'll stop a bullet, what won't. Um, and again, it just kind of you get hit with the simunition or the paint bullet, and you feel that pain penalty, and some guys laugh it off and say, "Oh, I'm hit. Oh man." I took it as I'm fucking dead. If this is real, I just got killed. I need to really understand why I got killed, and I need to adjust myself. So I just always took training a lot more seriously than a lot of other people do. So that was one of the things, is just seeing how easy it is to get hurt and how much you could prevent it, or at least mitigate that risk. And that was big. So maybe, I guess, to answer your question, risk mitigation by learning angles, learning the tips and tricks to keep yourself safe, just opened my mind to everything, because it bled over into everyday operations as a cop.
Was going to SWAT school a volunteer thing or a voluntold thing?
No, volunteer, complete volunteer. We don't do the voluntold thing. It's if when I tried out, it was on my own time. I came in on my off time. I put in the time on my own time to assist the SWAT team prior to me being on it, as being a role player. Um, I would gather their equipment, and I would just basically kiss ass the best I could to get the guys to like me. So when it came time for me to be on the team or to try out for the team, that they at least know who I am, what I'm about, and not just think, who's this kid? Because I was 22 when I got selected for SWAT school.
So a toddler, basically. Yeah. So a child. Who the fuck is
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
kid? Oh, what's the average age of the guys on the team that you were looking at?
When I first got on,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I would probably say one of the youngest guys on the team was mid to upper 30s, and it just went up from there. So I was like the
Established then.
kid. Yeah. I mean, I got the I had a baby bottle. I had a balloon animal police hat. Yeah, I was I was definitely the baby for sure.
Well, you gotta learn your place, and it's 100% your fault that you're so young. I,
Yeah.
but at least you want to be there. At least you want to be there. If they didn't give you a shit, that would be a bad sign. If they're not giving you a hard time, because that's much worse.
One of my buddies, he actually just retired, but he told me the best thing anyone could ever tell, a kid at that age, instead of getting discouraged by what a lot of people today perceive as like bullying or hazing or whatever. And it was more the realization that if they don't mess with you, they don't like you. So
For you kids listening at home, that is at every level, every professional level of every unit in the fucking military, law enforcement, everywhere, every branch of government as well. So everything. It just looks a little different, but that is not an exclusive thing to any unit out there at all. Fuck, man. So, so you got this SWAT doing this thing. Where does and then one shot and keeping you proficient and deep in the weeds. Have you been doing that the whole time, or when did that creep into things?
I started that in 20. So one shot defense, I started just a small LLC. I started that in 2012, and originally I've shut it down and started it based upon things going on in my life. But I mean, I would say I've been doing it pretty continuously since 2014. Started out just doing basic private firearms classes, and then going to teaching the Florida concealed weapons class, basic firearm safety course. Um, and then it started to morph into the more experience I got. It started to morph into I'm learning all this stuff. I'm getting good at it, proficient at it, all this advanced training. I want to, again, give that to the people who, law abiding citizens to defend themselves. There's no reason that they shouldn't know. Granted, I'm not giving them, in depth SWAT tactics, but just basic law knowledge and basic firearms fundamentals so they could, survive a deadly force encounter. Because I could tell you right now, the vast majority of people who either think they can shoot or think that they could operate under that level of stress in a real combat environment or self-defense environment, that number just plummets. It's a very, very small number of people that could actually do it.
Yeah, I talked to somebody yesterday, and they said, it drives me nuts, all of the instructors that are teaching people in, ARs and body armor and stuff, and that's like all you see on social media. And I said, yeah, if we're in body armor and fully kitted out, we are fucked. Things have gone awry. A
Yeah,
lot of
your
people
AR
are
is
going to
not going to
die.
help you that much.
Yeah, we're going to die of some radiation. There's something that the society has fallen. Well, man, like, what got you started on this whole path to make this your whole life? Like, because it creeps in. Like, do you want more? You want to be better? And a lot of guys, the high performers, are like, I just want to take in as much as I got. And then all of a sudden, it's all you talk about. It's all you talk about with your friends. It's all you do on the weekends and things like that. As a kid, was this always a draw for you? Law enforcement or even joining the military?
Yeah, so it was my dad. I have to give all the credit, obviously. My dad was so here's where you'll might be interested, might not, but you'll see why I said I don't identify as a millennial. But so my dad caught the tail end of World War II. Uh, he was he yeah, yeah. So he entered the army. I even wrote it down. I got his discharge papers and everything. But he entered the army at 17, just turning 18, in December 8th of 1944.
So he was born in 27.
26. So he entered in 44,
26, 1920. For those listening home,
1926.
1926. Yeah. Okay.
And so he did that. He was I the story I heard, he was originally assigned to the Navy, but then the Navy, I guess they were coming out of the Pacific and they were kind of downgrading and or downsizing, I should say. So they said, no, you're going to the Army. So he went into the Army and he became an MP. And then he stayed until active duty till 1946, and then he did reserve from 46 to 49, and then he got out. And then he started law enforcement in 1971 or 72, and then he was a cop until 1992.
Okay.
So my whole life,
Wow.
I mean, I was only there for a very small part of that because I was
Yeah.
born in the late 80s. So I unfortunately didn't get to see that time or, remember that time other than pictures. But yeah, he was still a police officer when I was a kid. And there's pictures of me in the patrol car and on top playing with the lights and, him holding me in uniform and stuff like that. So seeing that always definitely pushed me in that direction, I would say.
Did you ever sit with him and hear any of his stories or anything?
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was old enough to that point where I started to take interest, he was an old guy. I mean, he worked a job until he was 88 years old. Um, he had a
Tough old guy, just
dude.
hard as nails.
He was the goat. Like, when the old timers are like, "Oh, I used to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow." Like, I was in during the Great Depression. My dad actually was, so it was hard to kind of argue with that. But yeah, he was a tough dude. And when we did talk a bit about his experiences when I got old enough to understand and comprehend, but um, I never got to get as in depth as I would have liked maybe now with the understanding and knowledge of not only law enforcement but of military too, of how his service went. But from what I gathered, basically, he went in, he he was assigned, he went to his AIT, his infantry school, and then he went over to the MP brigade or I don't have the exact, I don't have his DD 214 here. It's at my mom's house, but um, he was put into that, the MPs, and then I think he went to Fort Knox and guarded the gold and did transports from the little bit I remember talking with him.
Wow, that's that's fucking cool, man. Do you have any older siblings that have any stories, or just you?
No, yeah, I have a my sister. She's 8 years older than me, and then I have half brothers and sisters that are in their 70s now, 60s and 70s. Um, one I'm still really close with. He was an Air Force vet himself. He did an entire career. He was on the C-130. I believe he was on the Spooky. I believe that's what they call it. He was the C-130 gunship. He's a crew chief for them.
In Vietnam?
I don't know when he went in. I'm gonna have to. You make me feel bad. I'm gonna have to call him and sit down and have this conversation. But I
Don't
definitely
feel
know
bad, man. Don't feel bad.
he was definitely in through like the first Desert Storm, Gulf War, like all of that. He was through all of that. Um, and I think he was in through most of the war on terror, or some of the war on terror as well. And his son, my nephew, I guess, who's older than me, is man, he's an 05 or 06 now in the Air Force.
Crazy, crazy. For those listening at home, a spooky gunship is a AC-130 that has two miniguns and a 105 millimeter mortar, that it fires fucking shells from
Cannon, yeah.
altitude, and cannon, yeah, 105 millimeter, and it is that's I'd like to be on one of those and just lay like for to rip it on a minigun or something like that. It is a flying death machine, and it's so fucking cool.
He would tell me that as the aircraft is flying, when they shoot that, the whole aircraft goes like this. It like
I can imagine.
physically pushes it to the side when they shoot the big 105.
Yeah, fucking those are. I've had some guys on and talked to some guys that said, they're having a rough time in getting getting fucked up, and that thing comes on station, and it is a warm feeling inside when that comes on and starts laying waste to the other side. So, yeah, that's a cool machine. That's awesome. So, history of military service in your like siblings and in your family as well. So, from a young age, you wanted to serve somehow. Is that what kind of you were thinking then? It's just always been there.
Yeah, it just you see it, and as you grow up, and especially being in a pro law enforcement military household, that you're brought up as heroes and nobility and honor and things like that. To some people that might sound cheesy or stupid, but to me growing up, that was a real thing, something to look up to make a living doing something noble for others. You know, um, so that put me in high school. When I went to high school, they had an ROTC program, so I immediately jumped on that, and I did ROTC for all 4 years of high school, which is a Navy program. So it was Navy ROTC. Um, so I mean, my dad and the ROTC program, it was like, I'm going. I just need to pick a branch. Uh,
But you said you got into law enforcement first, right?
yeah. So So I graduated high school in 2007, and I was working with a Marine Corps recruiter, and I wanted to do MARSOC. Um, I wanted to go Marine Corps Special Operations. I believe they had either just set it up or maybe it was still recon at that point. I can't remember, but I was working with a recruiter, ASVAB. You know, I my PT was off the charts because that's all I did. I was in charge of the PT team or the physical training team for competitions. I was in charge of the drill team. I was the as a junior, I was a master chief, the highest enlisted rank before officers. I know we're talking JROTC. I'm not getting full of myself, but I'm just saying it was they lay it out like the real military for the most part. Now that I've been in the military, I can understand it, but they lay it out and make it just like that. So, everyone that had a problem came to me and I had to go to the officers and fight for them and stuff. So I got a taste of that. But right when I graduated, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and I was kind of forced to make a choice. It was either join the Marine Corps, I'm going to Afghanistan or Iraq, like tomorrow, because there was still there was still the heat of a lot of heavy fighting, um, and risk. God forbid something happened and I was deployed or I was gone. My family, my mom, my sister, and everything being kind of left alone, not knowing what was going to happen. So I basically said, all right, I'll go to college. I'll do 2 years, see what happens. And then if anything, I'll go in as a warrant officer. And because then I started, after my 2 years, I wanted to fly helicopters in the Army. So I was like, I'll go the warrant route. Uh, but then eventually he beat the cancer, thankfully, a couple of years later. But I was already in college at that time, and I became a little bit of a knucklehead in a couple ways, and I kind of saw stuff going downhill for me. So I said, you know what, fuck it, college is stupid. I'm gonna go to the police academy, and I did. I basically did 2 years of community college, and instead of going to a 4 year and finishing, I said I'm going to go to the academy. I went to the academy in 2009, and then luckily I would have been hired in 2009, but in government around the holidays, nothing happens at all. So I got hired first thing January of 2010.
Okay. So,
Graduated 07, academy in 09, and then hired 10.
and then starts your law enforcement because you said you enlisted in 2016. So you get through the process, and after that's all, did you have to shadow anyone for a while, or did they just hand you keys to a car and put you on the schedule and say, all right, good luck?
Now, there was a full FTO process or field training process. It was 2 weeks of in-house, just sitting with the trainers and getting squared away on all your equipment and your weapons, your uniform, stuff like that. And then you get sent out to a field training officer, where basically you go ride with a senior officer, and you start your on the job training. And I did that
What was
for
that?
you do that for about months.
What was that like? What did you think of that whole process?
There's no other way to do it. Um, if you ever said, "Here's a gun, here's your keys, here's your vest, go," that's that's a no go. You're looking to not only get that person killed or hurt, but they're going to go hurt or kill somebody else, and they're not going to serve their community to a high level. They're going to basically be a waste. So, um, learning from senior officers who have been there, done that, they know how the agency works, they know how the administration works, they know the ins and outs of the city that they actually police. Um, like I said, you have to have an FTO program. You have to ride with someone. There's 4 phases to FTO. First phase, you're basically just a passenger. You're watching and learning. You're watching your senior officer, how he does things. Um, that a good FTO will explain to you what he's doing as he's doing it and tell you why we do it this way, stuff like that. And then they start to kind of like, all right, now you do it on the next one type of deal. And then it just builds from there. Phase two, you start driving, you start kind of taking primary on delayed calls for service. And then phase three and phase four, usually night shift, you start handling the more complex calls, the more in progress calls and stuff like that. And your FTO becomes less of a teacher and more of just a stands in the background and watches you do your thing and hopefully stop you before you fuck up too badly. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Is this your hometown, or is this where you lived at the time, is where you were working?
Right next door to where I grew up. So the next city over.
But still pretty familiar with it your whole life.
Not really. I never really spent too much time in the city that I work for, but like I said, I mean, I've driven through it a handful of times. But right after high school, I moved to Orlando, Central Florida, and I went to college up there, and then went to the academy up there, and then I kind of put my application out both in Central Florida and South Florida, and I ended up getting hired back down to more South Florida, where my hometown was. So I ended up moving back down to my hometown.
How did your, because with any trade or any job, I use carpentry a lot. When you start building houses and you see how things are made, you start looking at things that nobody else looks at. Like you can see behind the walls of, this is fucked up, or this trim, this gap here. How did your perception change of the public after you started seeing it in it from a different angle and different light, where you lived, like what you started to learn?
Yeah, I would definitely just to make add to your point. Most people live in a bubble, especially when you're young. You don't have a good picture of the real world and how ugly it truly can be. Um, you see things on the news, but when you're a kid, hopefully you don't watch the news, if at all that much. So you kind of are oblivious. Hopefully, um, if you're a parent, don't let your kid watch the news. Just don't. But it does change you. It does show you the realities of life. I would say to a degree it's similar to a soldier being deployed to a war zone and then coming back. You know how you view training. You're like, oh, another stupid training evolution. But then you come back from an actual deployment or war zone or something. I imagine you look at training a bit different because oh, I saw something similar to that over there, and you should pay attention to this. That was what it was kind of like. You kind of learn how nasty we could be to each other as humans and the darker side of things, and now you start to have a better picture and understand. I don't want to say that it made me hate people necessarily, or anything to that extreme. Obviously, this job is a selfless job. We do this for others for the most part, right? But it definitely helps you read people, kind of read between the lines, like you say, with the whole carpentry thing. Like you can see where some things either aren't what they appear to be, or um, have a darker intention behind it, so to speak. But for the most part,
Yeah, a
it's still
facade
a very
almost.
rewarding career in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And how about, did you notice anything in yourself with, because now your job is where you're living, and there's threats that come along with that, of, because you can arrest somebody and then you can see them at the store a couple weeks later. Um,
Hmm.
how does your mind start wrapping around those things? Now there's other things I have to think about that weren't a concern before, but now they are all the time.
Hypervigilance is a good word to describe, at least how I think, how an officer that any police officer really needs to live their life, because it's true. Like, there have been many times I have at one point in my life lived in the city that I work for. Um, so I've woken up and I've had notes on my patrol car. I've had, very, very not nice notes. Um, I've had flat tires, I'm sure, from overnight. People that I have arrested that lived in the community I lived in. Um, it's what I think comes good from that is how you learn to treat people, even the ones you arrest. Because especially to a lot of people, if it's not domestic related, where it's emotional, like if it's just a kid doing something stupid, or a crime against property or something like that, how you treat that person when you arrest them, I think, has a lot to do with the other side of what you're asking. If I was a complete asshole to this person and left on a very bad note, I can expect that if I ever saw this person again, it wouldn't be good. But um, I can actually happily say that a lot of people I've arrested thanked me, and were, yeah, you're cool, man. I like you. I like you. Like a lot of people, I, I just didn't treat people like complete garbage and an asshole, even if I arrested them. It was just always a business thing. It was never personal. I don't care what it was, what happened. I don't care if they tried to fight me, if they punched me or whatever. It was, once it's over, it's over. And I was always cool with them. And I think that helps because, yeah, you're on guard, but I would hope that they don't want to just, pull a gun out and shoot me in the face. At least if I was a cop that was cool with them, or, treated them like a human.
Yeah.
Also,
Traumatic
stay strapped.
situations, things stand out, right? Yeah.
Also, stay strapped and know how to use it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And did you always, well, you joined as a kid, kind of, but now you have to carry all the time, right? Once you become a cop and you're living, because you're living in your deployment zone. It's all the time. And you don't know who's around the corner.
Luckily for me, I went to a part-time police academy, so I worked part-time at a gun store and a shooting range, and then at night I went to the police academy. So it took me 8 months to get through my academy because it was part-time. I worked and went to the academy, but I worked in a firearms related field, so um, that also fed into my habit, or my profession that I do now as well, just being in the firearms world. And I shot a lot. I got to shoot for free and stuff. And I started that like right at 18. So I've had either a gun on my hip or around guns my entire life. My dad had guns in the house. I was shooting since I was 8 years old. Um, so like guns to me are just, it's an accessory. Like, I have my gun, I have my wallet, I have my watch, I have my pocket knife, I got my badge, I'm ready to go. Like, it's a part of life. I would much rather leave without my phone at home than not have my gun on.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I'm so lax with it now, though. I just don't care. I don't know what it is. I just don't. I don't give a shit at all. I'm like, whatever. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Um, but
You
this has
got
got to
two guns
be.
right here, bro. They ain't gonna mess with you.
I had this discussion with a police officer, and it people, even people that are well trained, that know how to use a pistol and know how dangerous it is, do not understand the gravity or the responsibility of carrying a pistol. And then with the very, very, very small chance of having to use it, that you don't understand that and what it could do to not only the other people or people behind them or off in the distance that you can't even see, let alone your own mental health with having to defend yourself and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into it that I think about. I mean, I've considered all those things, but that comes with some kind of the profession, and you have a lot of time. you have a lot of time alone with yourself at times during training and things like that, and to consider what you're doing and the impact of all these trainings and how they'll affect you. Well, we have the time. A lot of the time we don't put any thought towards that. I've put a lot of thought towards it. So I don't know. I feel like, and this is not always the case. Um, a lot of people say that people mess with them, or they'll talk shit to them or something like that. I'm like, I don't really have that problem. Maybe it's because I stand up straight and I look the way I do. I am not as tough as I look, but that's part of it. If if somebody looks like you shouldn't fuck with them, you probably shouldn't fuck with them. You're more likely to go fuck with somebody that you can fuck with. Um, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and I don't really carry. I've got my stuff down here in the basement in case somebody comes into the house and I'm down in the basement. Uh, it's going to be a bad day for you, but I'm pretty. Yeah, don't come into the house. Other than that, I guess rob me on the street corner when I'm stopped at the stop sign.
I look at it as that there's two parts to it, and even for you being a concealed carry or constitutional carry, whatever your state allows or whatever, but there's two parts to a firearm or owning a firearm or carrying a firearm. There's the actual knowledge and ability to use it efficiently and properly, but then there's the knowledge of the laws and legalities of when you can and cannot use it. And I always tell people, like, you could be the best shot in the world, but if you don't know when you can use it, you're going to be the best shot in jail. And you could be the smartest person in the world and know every law and legality that there is, but if you don't know how to operate your pistol or your gun and shoot properly, you're going to be the smartest person in jail or dead. So I would just say to that, you got to have that balance. You got to learn your local laws. You got to understand. And that was another thing that I tried to market in my business when I taught the concealed weapons classes, is it wasn't just 4 hours of a gun and shooting, and this is a gun, this is how it works. I usually did about 2.5 hours of this is a gun, this is how it works. And then I did another 2 hours of laws and legalities, talking about use of force, deadly force, castle doctrine, stand your ground. Talked about some situations when you can and can't use your weapon, mindset. Because you hit the nail on the head too when you said if you do actually use that gun one day, you have to live with that and you have to be okay with it and stuff. And something that we don't do a good enough job in the military and in law enforcement is mental preparation before. You assume if you sign up, because you sign on the dotted line that says, I don't know if you've ever read your enlistment, but it's like you're signing up as part of the armed forces. You may be called upon to use, to kill enemy combatants in a war zone, whatever. Are you okay with that? Yes or no? You actually have to sign on that, but it's kind of just you sign on it and you're done. But to actually think about that ahead of time is something a lot of people don't do. And I would advise to you, if you've never read or listened on audiobook, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's On Combat and On Killing. I think it's anyone who carries a gun, whether you're a civilian, a law enforcement officer, or in the military, it should be mandatory reading. Or if you can't read like me, audiobook. But On Combat is more specifically tailored towards law enforcement, and On Killing is more tailored toward military personnel. But it just deals with like the morality of killing and the physiological effects that you can have. So like if you're going to have fucking nightmares and go insane for the first couple of weeks, but then it'll go away and it's cool, I think it'll help prevent a lot of PTSD.
Could, but you never know. I mean, I get around an inflatable raft and I start sweating and shit. So, fuck, who knows? Who knows what's going to affect you? Um, and you're right. Legalities and all these other bullshit. And people, you can say whatever you want, right? It's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, or all these cheesy sayings and things that you're like, whatever. You get a lot more leeway defending yourself with your bare hands than with a firearm or a knife, especially a knife, because oof, that's a lot of damage up close, and this person doesn't have any, like, oof, that's a bloody way to defend yourself. And so if you can defend yourself with your bare hands or your mouth, like, hey, why are you looking at me? Oh man, you know what? My brother had that shirt and he passed away, and it just reminds me of him. That fucking cuts most things off right away there. Just saying, practicing, um, talking your way out of a situation is paramount. Like, that should be your last resort. Last resort. As a bouncer once said, though, as soon as diplomacy fails, lead with the right. Like, don't like as, but you got to get to that point. You got to be good at talking. Those bouncers, they had to be able to talk these people down because they're drunk and they want to fight, and you got to talk them down and talk them down, and you got to know where the line is. And in that situation, they've all got each other's back. The 12 statements of the same thing is going to outweigh this one drunk idiot. So you got to know your operational environment as well. So there's a lot that goes into it, but training, 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 or even thinking about it, thinking about stuff, scenarios is fucking great too. Like, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of shit. Somebody's made a YouTube video for everything. You've made a few, I think.
I've never gotten into laws and legalities, but maybe I will. Maybe that's something that is worth sitting down and talking about. But I like I said, this is my first podcast. I like this type of platform. It's easier to talk. Like, the reason I shoot my videos live is because every time I try to record it, I'll like fumble a word, or I'll say something stupid, or oh, why did I say that? And I'll go back and I'll delete it, and I'll do it 18 times. But when I'm on the spot in front of people, when there's a little bit of pressure, I don't know why, I can talk better. I don't know what it is. It's actually really weird.
It's not that weird. It's a no fail sort of thing. Um, and you just go, well, you're aware of it and you know the material. Just fucking spit it out, dude. And recording, I record my stories at the end of the night every night, just because I like to go back in and, if I miss something, I'll watch it and I go, oh, I missed that. I'll add that. I'll re-record it and things like that. But sometimes I'll just hit it one take and go, I fucked that up, but fucking said, I don't care. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Like, I don't care. So people ask me, they're like, they'll say, is your show live? And I'm like, no, I'm not a psychopath. Oh my God. I can't have people on my show and then we talk about wild shit and then it's out there forever. Like, somebody could say the wrong thing and then they go back, I really wish I wouldn't have said that. Oh, that's classified. Can you delete that? Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you do that live, those people are psychos. Nothing wrong with that. They're just another level. Could I do it live? Absolutely. Fuck yeah, absolutely. But maybe not on some of the subjects that people want to get more in depth on and things like that. All right, back to stress, right? How you're building up stress. I don't know if you noticed it during your time on patrol or things, but everybody builds up stress. How were you? When did you realize that? Because everybody does it. It happens to everybody. Fuck, we can lie to ourselves and stuff, but it builds up. When did you first recognize it, and how did you blow off steam when you had that build up happen?
Working out is obviously a great way to build off steam, but it's also an operational mandatory thing. Um, but working out definitely helps relieve stress. Having a hobby. Uh, Behind my flags there on the other side, I got my motorcycle, so I ride. Um, Obviously, I shoot, and then, like I said, competition only came later in that time. But just finding things that interest me, and diving into it. Some people are afraid to dive into the things that interest them because of either time or money. But I mean, what else are we doing on this planet if not the things we want to do within reason?
Yeah, um, I'm big on fitness too. It's my favorite thing. Now that I've got my shit back together, it was my favorite thing for a long time. Then I got away from it, and now I'm back on it. So it's I all the food I eat is to fuel the workouts, to get to the fitness, to for some projects I'm working on for some content. But it's all about being as strong as I possibly can. Um, because I don't know where I'm going to start at that point of diminishing returns, but I'm on the upward trend, and I love it so much. So I harp on that a lot for me. Other people, it's tough to bring people change people's opinions. I just want to show people without like saying you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, hey, if you don't like where you're at, we can change it. So we can fix it. I got a lot of people that follow me or I follow them that can help you out. I'm not that person, but I'm trying to see how far I can push things. All right. What do you think? I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. What do you think when you see out of shape police officers?
Liability, liability to the agency, liability to other officers, and liability to themselves. I agree with you 100%. That's the one thing about our bodies and fitness. If you don't like something, you can change it. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take time. It's going to take some studying, some understanding, but you actually can change it. And to allow oneself to get so far is just it's a liability, and it's a liability for your own life, man. Like, cops don't live long after they retire, if at all. Like, if you look at statistically, they say you have maybe 10 years after you retire until people drop dead from stress, from heart related issues, and things like that. So um, you not taking care of yourself in this profession is, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you don't have to be a triathlete, you don't have to be a giant weightlifter or anything like that, but if you're not going to the gym daily or weekly, if you're not swimming, biking, doing something for your cardio health, what are you going to do when you got to jump that fence when your partner's getting their ass kicked? Or what are you going to do when that call comes where you got to pick people up and run with them? You know, we've had a lot of large, uh, large casualty events that have happened in my area, and it's like stress is one of those things too, where if you're not mentally prepared for it, it can cripple you in the time of need. People freeze, they piss and poop themselves, they become part of the problem, or they're so they crash their car on the way to the call. So now we have two problems. We have a mass casualty incident. Now we have you that crashed your car, and it's like, great. Now we have, you're not helping anybody now. Um, so I mean, to the people who do not work out and don't take their fitness seriously, get out of law enforcement, because you're just it's not a good way to live. It's not going to help you in the future. You're not going to have a long, healthy life if you don't take it serious.
In the military, we're held to height and weight standards, which is easily manipulated to a certain degree, um, based on the type of soldier you are and how strict your command is. If they're no bullshit command, you're gone. You're going to be gone because they'll do the paperwork and they'll get you out. Are there any type of height and weight standards that police officers that you know of are held to?
Some agencies do have physical fitness requirements and things like that. Some agencies do, some do not, obviously. Um, that goes back into that cultural thing. Like, if that's been a thing in the past, it usually drags on in some way, shape, or form. Um, but not all agencies do. And some agencies, they have the initial, just to get hired, you have to pass, the CJ BAT. You have to go and do their physical agility test. You have to, like, all these basic things. But some agencies beyond that, once you're actually working and in the agency, there's no real physical fitness requirement annually or something like that. I mean, another thing about why I love the SWAT team is that there is, just like when I was in the military, I was doing at one point, I did a PT test twice a year for SWAT, and then we did our PT test twice a year for my unit in the Coast Guard, and it's just, it's something to keep me motivated. Like, hey, I got this coming up. I got to work out. I got to start running again. Sometimes you'll run, and then it'll fall off and I'll just do weights or whatever. And then, oh, PT test is coming. I'll start running again. So it just always kept you on that edge. So I like having that. I like stringent, but sadly, just some agencies find it, again, more of that liability that this officer gets hurt during the physical fitness test, or sometimes unions can get in the way. And that's not a country thing. It might just be a state thing or an area thing, but some unions will tell you, you can't have a physical fitness thing because what if this officer fails? You going to fire him? My answer, yes. Hey, listen, you got 3 months to pass. If you don't, you're gone. And when, we're talking about a physical fitness test that is probably like my 8-year-old could do it.
Yeah, what's it look like?
So
What does a PT test look like in law enforcement?
the CJ bat down here is like, I think it's a half-mile run. Yeah, 2 laps around the track, and then that's a certain time, and then it goes to, there's a swim portion where you jump in the pool with long pants on and a shirt, and you got to swim back and forth. I can't remember the exact distance. So there's a swim test, and then there's like a small obstacle course with like a 4-foot wall, 6-foot fence, climb in and out of a window, like jump over some things. It's nothing like a military boot camp obstacle course or a SWAT team obstacle course. It's a very watered down version. If you go online, you can, New York City, I think, just posted theirs, and theirs was like they're inside of a gym, and they have like this thing. It's a stairs, and like it's like 5 stairs up a platform and 5 stairs down. You got to like run up and down that like 3 times or 5 times or something, and then you're running around a gym. Like it's a joke if you ask me, but again, not everyone thinks the same way that I do about fitness and what it takes to be in this profession. So
Do you think fitness is going in law enforcement? Do you think it's going to continue to become, because I say that the new generation is getting into fitness, and they don't drink. So they're doing something. I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they ain't drinking, which is too bad and also good at the same time. I think there's a good and bad to partying as a kid and getting it out of your system. So that's a different conversation, though. That's a weird, different conversation. But, kids are getting more into fitness. There's influencers is big on that thing, and they're getting all their stuff from social media, and fitness is in there, or people, it's very easy to show off if you look the part, so people are looking at that stuff. So where do you see fitness in law enforcement going over the next 10 and 20 years?
I hope it continues in that fashion. I hope that bleeds into the profession. The day of the big fat donut eating cop is gone. I would say that there are a lot more fit cops in today's world than there was maybe 10, 12, 20 years ago. So it is better in that regard. But again, it's a personal thing, meaning that officer makes that choice, that lifestyle. It's still not, the law enforcement as a profession as a whole has still not got to that point where like in the military, your PT test, here it is. You at least have one, and you have to meet a goal or there are consequences. I'm not saying you should be fired immediately if you can't meet it. But what I'm saying is, hey, listen, you failed. You have 3 months to work out and get yourself ready. And if you can't pass the second one, then you're going on administrative leave. And if you can't pass the third one, you're gone. Like it could be progressive discipline, so to speak, but there just isn't that in a lot of agencies. So individual personal fitness has gone up. I agree, but it's still not a cultural thing in at least down in the area where I'm at.
It's bound to get more. All right, I think so. I think we're getting more into fitness now, correctly executing training plans and working out correctly. I think that's going to still take some time because there's a lot of bad information out there on the best way to do things. People think you got to go kill yourself in the gym. Fuck, I can make you Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I can make you pretty fucking dangerous at 2 days a week in the gym. Like, uh, you
I'll sign up. I'm
just
ready.
at that, yeah, huh?
Said
If
I'll
you
sign
got
up. I'm
time
ready.
and you,
I'll do that.
yeah, if you got time and you just dedicated and that's what you got 2 days, I think that's like entry level. You can stay pretty fit working out 2 days a week, um, and where you want to be to maintain, especially at that level. But we'll see where things go. But I'm not a trainer. I can tell you how I got to be how I am, but there's a lot of concussions and psychosis and weird dedication involved in that whole process, and it's definitely not for everybody. So, man, so you're hanging out in Florida, doing your thing. When does joining the service start creeping back into your mind? Did you kind of get into a monotonous daily thing where you're like, I need something else, or what starts becoming your thought pattern going forward?
Part of it was that for sure. Monotony sets in. Uh, always wanting to set goals for yourself was a thing. But ever since high school and not joining the military, since I was so gung ho as a kid, um, it always kind of left a little bit of a man. I've always wanted to do it. I should have did it. I never did it, and I'm going to regret it when I'm older. I just kept thinking that I don't want to regret that when I'm too old to do it. So, 20, I think it was in the beginning of 2016, I was doing it was an event called National Night Out. And that's basically where in your local area, you have all the local agencies, fire departments, FWC, um, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard recruiters, just like they bring all their toys and all their stuff to a park, and all citizens can come and interact. And I was there with the SWAT team, and we had a display, and you can check out some of our gear, some of our weapons, some of our munitions. We'll tell you, you can look at our SWAT truck. Um, you can interact and ask questions, but I remember that year there was a high terrorist possibility for something to happen. So I was doing roving security for the event, and the U.S. Coast Guard TACLET South Tactical Law Enforcement Team, or Tactical Law Enforcement Detachment, was there, and I stopped by their tent because they had 240s displayed, and they had 50 caliber, or I'm sorry, they had the what was it, the SAS, the M110. They had just a couple of badass guns. They did have a 50 caliber actually out there. So I stopped by to play with those, and I got to talking with one of the recruiters there. Or well, actually, no, he wasn't a recruiter. I'm sorry. He was just he was a actually he was an ME1 at the time, and him and I got to talking, and he started telling me about the specific program the Coast Guard had for people like me, meaning law enforcement. I've been on for a while. I've been on a SWAT team for a while, so I have related experience. He was telling me about a program called Depot, which is like a direct entry petty officer program. Um, and he's like, I'll get you here at my unit. We'll get you on a TACLET team. You'll be, you know, jumping on helicopters and jumping on Navy ships and going over doing anti-piracy and, drug interdiction, this and that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to call tomorrow. Um, so yeah, so I went home and I started looking into it and watching videos and doing my research and studying up on it, and uh, called a recruiter, and it started me down that path.
That sounds pretty badass sitting here, except for the water part. Fuck that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I assume you're used to it being down in Florida all these years.
I
No,
mean,
that
water is
sounds
definitely
cool.
part
Direct entry. Is it part? Yeah, you're pretty comfortable in the water.
yeah. But I've been on boats and swimming and stuff my whole life. It's part of the Florida culture, so it didn't scare me, that part.
Yeah, well, experiences may vary. My
Wait
listeners
till we
know
fast forward
about.
though. Wait till we fast forward when I get to my initial unit, because I actually wasn't on the water for 7.5 or 7 years out of my 8 years.
I guess we'll get there.
Again.
But so you start doing your research, and what this guy was saying to you at this display day is that what you were seeing online? Is that all? Did all that line up?
Yep, he told me the truth. He explained like basically what I would have to do. Obviously, I have to do boot camp, and then there would be what we call an A school. I have to go to an A school, and which is like, I guess it would be like your MOS or your whatever military job you have. You go to that school. I'd have to go to that, and then after that, I can jump on with them. I get on what they call green team. Basically, get trained up for however long that takes, and then I can jump on to one of their teams. And but at that time, they had a reserve program, and I was only going to do this as a reserve. I obviously wasn't going to do this full time. I was already 7 years into my law enforcement career. I was established. I owned a home. Um, my my fiance at the time was pregnant with our kid, so like I wasn't gonna jump in and leave my law enforcement career. But he basically told me I could do all this as a reserve because they have reserve slots there. So I was like, absolutely. I went through the whole process. It wasn't easy. I ended up having to drive all the way up to Orlando. The Orlando recruiting office for the United States Coast Guard was phenomenal. Um, I don't want to trash talk anything, but the one down here just didn't facilitate things properly, and it was really really annoying. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it one more try. I'm going to call the Orlando office, and I just happened to get the chief in charge of the recruiting office, and he, man, like, imagine dealing with car salesmen, as some recruiters have been, likened to, and then you deal with the owner's son who just wants to impress you and gives you the best deal of a lifetime. That's what I got. So I went up there and I enlisted, and that was, like I said, in October of 2016. By the time that all got done, that's why I went to boot camp. I went to boot camp in October. I swore in a little bit before that. I was actually at a SWAT sniper training, and he came down and swore me in on the range. But yeah, so then I went to a modified boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey, and then I went to while I was in boot camp, I got a call from the warrant officer in charge of the training division of Tacklet South, which is where my orders initially were, basically telling me the Coast Guard just cut the program for reservists at a Tacklet unit because of the nature of the missions and the amount of quals to keep up on. The tempo was so high that the reserves just, like anything else in life, the level of dedication of the reservists varies. You get the people who just want to exist, and then you get, the go-getters that they'll do what they need to do to meet the standard and exceed it to get on mission. Most people were just riding the wave. So they did away with the program, and they were basically like, with my tactical background and the things that we had talked about, they were like, you have kind of only one other choice, and that's called a PSU, which is a port security unit. So I was like, well, okay, well, I'm kind of here already. I don't really have much of a choice. So I said, I'll go to a PSU. So I actually got transferred I never even made it to tackle it, but in boot camp, my orders were changed to the PSU, and that's where I went. That was up in Tampa, Florida, where the unit's located. St. Pete, whatever.
Okay. We'll rewind just a little bit. What is the book answer? What is an ME1?
So ME is your rate, meaning like that's what your job is. So the Navy and the Coast Guard use rate and rank. The vast majority of the other, obviously the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force, and even the Space Force, all use like you have your rank, and then you have either your position or your job. So in Green for Green Berets or whatever, you have like 18 Deltas or 18 Foxtrots or right?
Yeah, 18 Delta, Alpha Charlie, Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo Fox Zulu, and 180 Alpha.
Okay, so 18 is just your special forces. So ME is Maritime Enforcement Specialist. So that's
Okay.
my job title. And then you have ME1, which is my rank, which is a petty officer first class. So as an E6 in the Coast Guard or the Navy, you're a petty officer first class. So we combined your job and your rank to get ME1. So I'm an ME1. If I was a fifth class or a second class petty officer, an E5, I'd be an ME2 or ME3 if I was a E4. So that's just how we talk to people. If you're a bosun's mate, you'd be a BM1, BM2, BM3, or a BMC if you're a chief, which is an E7. So that's just kind of what that is. Like we call each other by that, but like you wouldn't walk up to someone and be like, hey, 18 Delta E5, So it's just it doesn't. They're very different.
No, we just say Nick or Jim or things like that. Um, really first name basis. The Navy and the Coast Guard, uh, E7 is a god in both in those things, and in our ranks, it's not. Same same pay chart, E7 or whatever it, as a chief in the Navy. Uh, Vastly different levels of I don't want to say respect, but respect given to those. Because for us, everybody's in E7. Everybody makes E7 unless you get out before you're promoted to E7, which does happen. Um, but yeah, so okay, so that makes sense. So you joined as an E6.
I joined. I joined as an E5. It was supposed to be
Okay.
E4, but I picked up E5 because of my unique experience. So when remember I told you my recruiter was like the best recruiter in the planet. And he kind of knew I went through a tough time trying to get in because of how the other recruiting office treated me. So I don't know whether he just liked me as a person or whether he was trying to, make up for their lack. He went above and beyond for me, and what he did is obviously I had letters of recommendation. I wrote a memo of kind of who I am and what I've done up to that point because I had already, again, I've had 7 years in law enforcement. Uh, I had 5 years of SWAT experience. I was a sniper at that time. I was a training coordinator on the team because, again, me and training, and I've already had advanced hostage rescue training. I had advanced SWAT school. I had all these different schools under my belt, and I was a field training officer. I was like, I did a lot, and he was basically like, "Listen, your level of knowledge and expertise, you shouldn't be lumped in with 17, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds with no life experience, and you have to like basically be what they are." They're like the United States Coast Guard, especially being DHS, being basically federal law enforcement for the most part, especially as an ME, a maritime law enforcement officer, that's a federal officer. Um, we're going to put in what they call a rate determination package. So I wrote all this stuff up, this big packet, and went to the rating force master chief of the Coast Guard, and he basically said, this guy's got a decent amount under his belt. We'll put him in as an E5. And so, yes, I did go in as an E5, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it now. If I could go back, I probably would have went in as an E4 just to kind of like, prove myself to the guys, because some people were a little butthurt that I came in as an E5. Um, Granted, they didn't have anywhere near the experience I had in real life, but I'm a humble guy. It is what it is. I know, like I said, I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know crap about the Coast Guard at this point. So I had to learn drinking through a fire hose real quick, so I just didn't look like an idiot, because it's different when you have life experience, but there's also difference when you don't have the Coast Guard life experience.
Yeah, you have to learn some of those things. That's one thing. We have the 18 X-ray program in SF where you're a civilian and then you're a Green Beret. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between those two, but I'm just going to gloss over it for now. And in that thing I glossed over, there's no regular Army experience or any of that that you get with going up through the ranks, because you're civilian and then you're an E5 with a Green Beret and a Special Forces tab, and then they send you to a Special Forces group to be on an ODA. There's some stuff that's missed in there. Will those soldiers ever have to do those things? Probably not, but it does make you a better soldier. Some of those things never come up. So there's a positive and negative to all those things, where you've got all this experience, but hey, you missed out on cleaning the shitters on on Saturday night when everybody was getting in trouble and stuff, and bonding with the boys, or any of that other bullshit. And the regular, in this case, the regular Coast Guard experience, where we call the regular Army experience, and bullshit like that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure some of the people listening know what you're talking about as well. So, but that happens. So, okay. So we know what we're signed up for. We go to basic training in New Jersey. Really?
Cape May, New Jersey, in
Okay.
October, November timeframe. So this Florida boy, born and raised, was freezing his ass off, and found out that running in that type of weather is very different than running in, 80, 90-degree weather. It was not fun at all. No.
No, I can imagine it isn't. And then New Jersey kind of sucks as it is. But
Cape May is
unless
beautiful.
you're from
That the
there,
city of Cape
it
May, beautiful, very nice.
okay.
Like, cool place to like to live there. It's like a very small, quaint boating, fishing town. Very, 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 very pretty. But yeah, I've never heard of it until I was given orders to go there.
All right, so you wrap that up, and there is a thing in the military. If they breach your contract, you can go, I'm not doing that. So was that not an option for you? Because if you sign a contract with them and they can't uphold their end of the bargain, you can say, I'm just going to go home. Did you ever think about doing that?
Honestly, I was so bitten by the bug, so to speak, at that point. I was already in it. I already raised my hand and swore in. I already, like, I already put in so much time and effort and research into it, and my family, my coworkers, the people that knew me, I did, I can't go back and be like, I didn't get what I want, so I just said no. I was like, fuck it, we'll do it. The point is to serve. Granted, I would like to do serve on my terms. That'd be great, but at the same time, it was like, all right, I didn't get exactly what I wanted, but I'm still going to get the military experience that I was craving since high school.
No, I completely understand. I just figured I'd ask. Did they even tell you about that? What are the options? I was just curious about that. But
They did.
what did they sell? What did they sell PSU as? Like because the guy's got a because this is probably an officer, or did you get an enlisted guy that calls you up and has to tell you your options? And how did they sell them each to you?
It was a warrant officer that called me, but I started working with him as well as my recruiter, who was good friends or knew a lieutenant commander at the PSU at the time. And at that time, they were deployed in Guantanamo Bay doing a security detachment down there. So again, civilian, I don't know any better. I'm hearing this. They tell me that, they do anti-terrorist force protection, water and land security. They do, all this high-speed stuff. I'm like, sign me up. I'm good. Keep going. So they did tell me what they do. I did speak to someone who was in the unit before I made my final decision of, yeah, I'll go. So they did get me in touch with the unit and someone who was actually deployed doing the job. A PSU is a 99 or 98% reserve unit. So it's about 160 or 170 people in the unit total, but there's only like 20 active duty components to it. So all the officers were reservists, all the chiefs, all the, only certain people to run the day-to-day stuff, supply, the armory, the boats and stuff. Only a few of them were active duty, that was their everyday life. The rest of us, we were all cops, firemen, federal agents, FWC, from all around the country. And we all, one weekend a month, and well, actually, yeah, one weekend a month for 3 days instead of two. So that was one of the things. We had 3-day drills instead of 2-day drills. And then, yeah. And then I would say 2 weeks a year, but it was way more than that. The PSU was a very unique animal, a very well kept secret. They're part of the deployable specialized forces. I am not in any way saying that we are SF or a special forces component. I'm just saying, as part of the Coast Guard, you have TACLIT, PSUs, MSTs, and MSSTs as part of the deployable specialized forces, which just means we can deploy anywhere in the world in under 96 hours all by ourselves. We have our own medics, our own cooks, our own logistics, our own everything, and we support a DoD mission. So PSU, we wore Navy uniforms. We were NATO compliant, meaning the rest of the Coast Guard at the time had 40 caliber pistols. We had 9mm. We were all issued our own rifles and our own kit and equipment and all that good stuff. Like the PSU, I would say, is the closest thing the Coast Guard has to, an Army or a Marine Corps unit, to the point where a PSU's main training area is at, oh my God, what did I just blank? The Marine
I'm
Corps
going to be no
base
help
in
for you here.
the Marine Corps
Lejeune?
base, Lejeune, yeah, geez, is in Lejeune, Courthouse Bay. So I went to boot camp. I went to Camp Lejeune, Courthouse Bay. You spend two or 3 weeks in the field. You go through the chems chamber, the gas chamber. You do patrolling. You do TCCC, fixed fighting positions, and react to contact. We went through Mount Town. Um, we learned how to work T&Es on the 240 and the 50 caliber. You do rifle quals. We did simunitions. We did force on force stuff, land nav, all of that. And that was our whole job. We were basically wannabe Marines, because in the event that DoD needs a security asset, we can deploy wherever they need us and set security both on land and in the water. So that's a PSU's mission. Basically, we can deploy anywhere in the world, secure an area on land or at sea, like a port or a waterway, coastal waterway or something like that. And we had to train for that to be either by ourselves or basically the forward deployed asset for the Coast Guard in that area.
And how many of these units are there? Is there one at every major port?
Oh man, there's 5 PSUs, five or six.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Yeah.
And have they ever
West
deployed to do
Coast.
their job?
To my knowledge, not in the sense of, I mean, we haven't had a war like that, but we you know we had an ME, or maybe it was a BM. Oh man, hold on. Before I say the wrong thing, I definitely don't want to offend anybody. Nathan Breckenthal, BM2, U.S. Coast Guard. Yeah, so he died in the Persian Gulf, April 24, 2004. He was part of the TACLIT team, so he was a TACLIT South guy, and he was killed a VBID, a vessel-borne IED. No, he was a DC-3, a damage controlman third class. I should have known that, but I've been out 2 years already, so please forgive me. But I just wanted to make sure I got it right to honor his memory and stuff like that. But yeah, he was a part of TACLIT South, and he was doing security for the oil platforms out there, the oil rigs, and a boat with a bomb rolled up and boom, flew off the boat, and killed him. And that was in the Persian Gulf in 2004. And he was damage controlman third class Nathan Birkenthal.
Um,
But
and as a Coast Guardsman out there, interesting. Okay, I never heard of that. There was a lot happening at that time, though, and I was not at all interested in the military either, or the news. As you said earlier, don't let your kids watch the news. I was not watching the news at that time. I was busy, probably doing something really dumb. So, okay, so we get to the unit. It's a PSU. You said it's Port Security Unit, or what did the U stand for?
Port Security Unit,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so a
So
Port
they're
Security Unit, and you've got, it sounds like a cool mission set, interesting. You got to keep up with, and you got to do your drill and your however long a year that you're trying to keep up with. But you're right, yeah.
and that's why we had 3-day drills instead of just 2.
Hey, you're getting closer to retirement with every little bit there, or whatever, however the reservists look at it. What is the level of commitment from your fellow coasties that you're seeing in this type of unit? Or does everybody want to be there?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, obviously, in any unit or any profession, you have either the people who have been there way too long, or you have the people that probably should be in a different unit that quite don't fit in. But for the most part, like I said, most of the people there were everyday professionals that did real stuff in the real world. So they were, again, cops, firemen, federal agents. We had bomb squad guys. We had air marshals. We had deputies. We had there were the occasional people that were either in college or or just a regular mundane job that just maybe thought this sounded cool. But for the most part, it's a very high tempo unit. Like I said before, probably the closest thing you have to a military unit. We have formation, we did PT, we had inspections, we clean guns every single month. We did what we call PQS, where we basically take all the guns apart, put them together, dummy rounds, function check, just proving proficiency with them. But I mean, we had M4s for everybody. Then there were 240 Bravos for defensive fighting positions, and then we had the M2 HBs and the M2 A1s or A2s that came out. We had our initially SIG 229 sidearm, and then they just recently swapped to the Glock 19, thankfully. And we had shotguns. So everything we did was obviously gun related, weapon related, and there's two sides of a PSU. I guess there's 3. There's the logistical side that has cooks, medical personnel, and administrative personnel, and then you have the two main are water side and shore side security divisions. So water side security, your job was in a boat. So you had special, I think they're 25-foot TSP boats, 240 and 50 cal machine gun mounts, pursuit rated, and they did their whole side of things, which was security on the water. Then there was what I did, shoreside security unit or division, and we basically did all land security elements. So from defensive fighting positions to entry control points, access control points. For those of you who don't know what that is, you're a gate guard, checking IDs and doing searches of cars and people if need be, depending on the God, I forgot the
Threat
name of
level.
it, but everything has an acronym, and I'm terrible at the acronyms. But depending on what the FP con level is,
Okay.
um, and then the
So
other part of that
what
was
does drill look like though? What does drill look like? So are you guys always the only focus is that mission in case somebody starts dropping bombs and you got to go secure a port or whatever, right? Is we're just staying ready. There's no because you're all reservists. There's no day to day activities. Just the people that are active. They're maintaining everything, and then you show up, you drill. All right, nothing happened. We're not activating. Let's clean all the stuff. Be ready to deploy as a unit. What's drill look like for you guys?
so you get there on a Friday, obviously you check in, you got to check. Something they don't tell you in the military. There's a lot of computer work. There's a lot of
Hmm.
general mandated training. Uh, I'm pretty sure every branch has it, but you make sure that you're squared away on that. You make sure you're squared away on your medical. You make sure you're squared away on all your paperwork, your equipment, your gear, and then you basically go into the training plan. And the training plan is set up by the training petty officer, and that just looks like it's something different every month, but it could be anything from um, CBRN, chemical, radiological, the whole, putting on full chem suits and gas mask fitting, running drills, doing that. Um, you could have a full on FTX, a field exercise where we go and we set up tents, these huge tents, a chow area, set security, set up an entry control point, and then just spend the whole weekend doing that, sleeping in the tents and the cots and running fire watch, just basically preparing for in the eventuality we had to go somewhere overseas and actually do that for real. Uh,
All right,
and
so
then other than
getting
that, it
ready,
was moving.
staying ready. Okay. Um, if you've been asked this before, I apologize, but I don't know the answer, and you're the only person I've ever run into that can answer it. Have you seen the video of the Coast Guard dude jumping on the top of the submarine?
Yeah,
What the fuck was? Why was? How is?
yeah.
What unit is that dude in?
I'm pretty sure that was it was a Tacklet South again. Um, it was a semi-submersible sub that was probably trafficking narcotics and drugs and stuff like that. Um, and it was absolutely awesome because it didn't go bad. If it went
It could have
bad,
gone.
it would have been, yeah. It's one of those things that if, let's say you're going to enter a room full of bad guys and you are the first man in and you do a somersault and shoot every bad guy and you don't get one scratch on you, people are going to look at you and be like, that was awesome. You should always do that until you go to the next room and do it and get shot. And they're like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do that. So that's pretty much what that was. um, Took a lot of balls to do
Yeah,
what he did.
definitely.
And he luckily, it was a good outcome, but that was sketchy as hell.
Yeah, definitely a
But
great clip,
but yeah,
but
that
not
the best meme
recommended.
came from that. The best Coast
So
Guard meme came from that. It was a video of the guy banging on the roof of the sub, and it said, "Just like that, the Coast Guard becomes a real branch of the military."
yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool. So that's where that's kind of what you wanted to get into. Is that like a scenario that would happen with your port security guys, or are you guys just focused on influx and outflux authorities? Those where that tack that south, they're kind of monitoring the waters off the coast. Then,
Yeah, so it's one of those things that the job of a PSU is unlike anything else in the Coast Guard. It's completely different. If you look at the Coast Guard, the Navy does this too, but there's a green side and a blue side. If you're on the blue side, you're on a boat or some type of boat water related unit, whether you are a mechanic or something at a port or whatever, but or you're on a ship, you're on the blue side. Green side, like that's you're either a land based unit, uh, but you just do two completely different jobs. So most of the Coast Guard is federal law enforcement. The other half is attached to DoD, not half, a small percentage, not a half, but then the rest of the PSUs and stuff like that attached to DoD, and they go do a completely separate mission. So like PSUs don't typically operate in CONUS. Typically, they're meant for OCONUS to attach to either a Navy unit or again we can attach to anything, attach to Army, Marine Corps, wherever we're needed, but we don't do any law enforcement, no search and rescue, nothing like that. That's not the main focus or job set of a port security unit. So a perfect example is what the port security unit were in a rotation as we went down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and we were a security asset for land and water. So all the seaward facing territory that is technically part of the United States, technically part of the security zone for Guantanamo Bay, the Coast Guard guards that. And then we had a role on security facing the waterway. So, like, let's say an attack boat or something were to come in and they were somehow to get past our armed boats, then we had the shoreside security division in defensive fighting positions with 240s and 50 calibers to make sure they don't make it to land.
okay. And you guys
So
were
that was
while you were
the
doing that, you're locked and loaded during that time.
with PDWs, personal weapons and stuff like that. But like it all depended on the situation. But I mean, were we sitting there with rounds in the chamber and fingers on the trigger? No, no. But um, if anything were to get past, or if conditions were to go to a certain level, then yes, we would arm up and get ready. But I mean, we have everything right there. We just don't sit there with it loaded.
So were you happy doing that? Doing that because you got to do your reserve. Um, you still got to be a reserve component, but were you still? Was it everything you hoped it could be? Having signed up for the more of a tactical side of things originally, and then you get moved over to PSU. What was that like in your mind after you found out what it was going to be like?
It wasn't exactly what I was thinking because again, I was thinking I was going to be doing anti-piracy and drug interdiction and stuff like that. But it was the military experience I kind of always wanted in a lot of ways. Um, as a reservist, that was a deployment, so that was a year-long deployment in Gitmo. So that was my active duty service. So that was my everyday life. It was cool. I didn't mind it. Um, but my whole 8 years in the service, I was still active law enforcement and SWAT and stuff like that. So I guess it didn't bother me because I was still doing. I guess I was doing both. I'm actually kind of happy because I got to do something that was a little bit different than what I did every day in as a police officer. So it was a good experience, a wide variety experience, learning how to shoot crew serve weapons at distance, learning how to where else can you shoot 240s and 50s, and and stuff like that. That's, not maybe a combat infantry unit or something, or special forces.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. We don't, well, we do some of that stuff, but yeah, I mean, if you're going, depends on what you're going to do, um, and where you're going. But, yeah, it all depends. I mean, you guys don't have a 240 and a 50 at your police department?
I wish, but no,
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 if that's the case, things have gone awry, right? If that's the case, if you guys are pulling out the heavy crew serve weapons, things have gone awry.
bad day,
So
bad.
you just did the was that the full enlistment? Was 8 years in the reserves, and that was it?
Yeah, I I got out October 2024, and I was at a point in my life. I had a kid, and I own a home, and I was, progressing in my law enforcement career, and um, God, it's hard to talk about it, but I will, whatever. Politically, the way the country was going to go, because obviously that was the big election, not to get political or anything, but that was the big election time. And, things in the military were like, you know, don't look at this other person. If she takes it as sexual harassment, then you're harassing her. Or, if this person who doesn't know who or what they are is here, you have to respect it and love it, and hugs and kisses for everybody. It was going that direction. And I didn't know politically where the world was going to go if the election turned out differently. And I just said, I don't know if I want to stay in the military and have to abide by those rules. Because even in the reserves, you're still bound by the UCMJ. You're still bound by, they can order you to do whatever they want at any time. So I just didn't know if I want to live that life, not knowing what the next 4 years or beyond was going to be. So and it was right before I hit my 10 years, where now I'm like, I'm halfway through. I might as well just shut up and finish. I made the decision for my family and for myself just to get out. I mean, I'm still proud of my service. I did an 8 years is almost a decade. So I got a lot of amazing experiences and met a lot of people, did a lot of training, um, got to deploy for a year and get that out of my system. So I decided to get out.
Admiral, you did your service, raised your right hand. Fuck, I did everything my country asked me to do. Well, now it's time to go do so. Back to full time in the. Or you're full time really at the police department that whole time, right? Except for your two
Yeah.
weeks a year.
Yeah. And we did, like I said, my unit, a PSU, was very, very demanding of their reservists. So sometimes they would do two week stints a year, or they would combine it and be a month. And we would go to either Lejeune, or we would go to Blanding, or we would go to Avon Park, or any of these other, military style installations, and live there and do training for 2 weeks straight, or a month straight, or something like that. So every now and again, we would, it definitely wasn't just 2 days a month, 2 weeks a year. It was a much bigger commitment in the PSU world. And I can say that because when I got back from deployment, I went through some hard personal times, and I went into what I call the Blue Guard. I went into the normal Coast Guard that, um, I was attached to a small boat station where we did do, um, law enforcement, search and rescue, migrant and drug interdiction, stuff like that, on a lesser scale than a TACLET. But like the everyday, you're out there boating and hanging out. You see a Coast Guard boat. That was what I did for almost 2 years, year and a half before getting out. Um, so I could tell you that reserve life was a lot easier than the PSU life. That reserve life was, hey Joe, I'm coming in an hour or so, and we'll get underway and go do this, and we'll go eat, and then we'll go out and we'll do this, and we'll come back, and then I'm out. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, it was a lot more chill. The PSU was definitely get there, you know, report to your squad leader or your chief, and get this done, and you're not leaving until you do. So the
Interesting.
changing into that life and then getting into the civilian life, I was like, oh, I have my weekends back. It's amazing.
What's the coolest thing you got to do while in the unit, in the PSU?
I mean, I would have to say I was the type of training we did at the different installations. Again, getting to experience, a very small glimpse of what the Marines do over at Camp Lejeune. We hung out with the Army guys and some of the SF dudes at Blanding. Um, got some really, really good training. We did mount there. We did land nav there. We did, I mean, just everything. A lot of awesome training. But I, I would have to say the coolest thing I did was go to Gitmo. There's a lot of what's the word? Smoke and daggers about Gitmo, and people make their own assumptions of what it's like there and what it is and stuff like that. And I got to see it firsthand, and I got to, see a lot of things that people will never know or see that's there. So I thought that was really cool. That was fun. And I put on
It's
almost
interesting.
like 25 pounds of muscle because all there was to do was work out. So it was great when I was there.
It doesn't get any better than that. Yeah, eat and work out. I can't think of anything more fun, actually. Uh, it's interesting. You guys got to do so many infantry tactics. That's got to be a lot of fun. You join the Coast Guard and you're like, oh, we're going to go out in the field and do battle drill 1 Alpha and shit. That's got to be fun.
React to contact, convoys, um, again, peeling, breaking contact, calling in nine lines, and communications on nets and radios, and just like I said, it was a full, well, not a full, but it was definitely a good military experience. Some of the regular Coast Guard at small boat stations and other units like that, it's a very different life. It is more like a professional, like a fireman life almost. You do training, and you're sleeping there. You get the call, the alarm goes off, jump in the boat, and you go to a SAR mission or a search and rescue or something like that, and then you come back. Like, so it's definitely not as military, like wake up and do PT formation at 5 in the morning. Like, it's not really like that, except
Okay.
for at
Cool, man.
the
Oh,
DOG.
okay. Well, so I met so this during this whole time you got this, you're going out, you're still at the same department, right? And you're progressing in your career during this whole time in normal life, whatever that fuck that means. And so, all right, we're not going to continue with being in the Coast Guard. We get out. What what is your what is your home station or your department? Uh, does they have any say or opinion in you being in there? Did it interfere with anything that they had going on for you and your career progression?
I'll start out by saying some people have horror stories about this, and your experience may differ, but I will say that my agency was very, very good to me. Um, Obviously, your service as a reservist is federally protected and mandated. If they mess with you, or your money, or your job in any way, there's it's federally protected. So that's cool, but it didn't really affect me negatively. I was in the training division, so I'm a full time training officer. Like I said, like not a field training officer. Like I teach everything. I'm the um, uh, firearms instructor, taser instructor, defensive tactics, driving, um, first aid. I mean, you name it. I instructor. I teach um, at my agency, and so being a relatively smaller to mid-size agency, we wear a lot of hats. So one person has a lot of responsibility. So when I left, I thought it was going to hurt me and hurt the agency, but they put someone as a temp in my position, and I went and did my thing. And when I came back, they put me right back in my position. No questions asked, no issues, no nothing. So, I can't thank them enough, and I appreciate it. And I'm very happy because not everyone, especially even on my deployment, had the same experience.
Great.
So,
I love to hear that. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's too bad because yes, there's federal laws in place, but who, I mean, you can fuck with somebody in other ways. Then okay, we can't do these things to them, but maybe they get a bad rating. That's not outlined in there, and who can prove that? Or maybe they get moved over and do this shitty job and get stuck on, or they get stuck on night shift or something like that. You get blackballed in other ways, and nobody's above that shit. People will fuck with other people just because they want to. That's the problem
100%.
with most of these unit. That's what problem with everything is people. The people involved. You can have great leadership and great people in positions, but everybody needs a job, even fucking shitty people. And if you hang on long enough, you'll probably get into a position where you're in charge of people, and then you can just fuck with people because you're an asshole. So that's great that you had good leadership that took care of you. So that was a year ago. Now we're out. We're back doing to full time. Where's all this going? How much time do you have left as a full time police officer and member of the SWAT team?
Well, that was so. I'm about to in January will be 16 years for me. So I'm in the middle of my 15th year. Um, I have 25 till I'm eligible to retire. So I got 10 more years till I'm eligible. Um, God willing, I will be on the SWAT team the entire time. Like when when I became a cop, all I wanted to do was be a SWAT operator. Like that was it. That's all I wanted. Um, Remember, I went to the academy at 20 and got hired at 21, so I knew, I only knew what I knew from movies and stuff. So I didn't realize that you're a part time, or that most teams are part time teams, um, and you still have to do a different job as well as be a SWAT officer. So I was like, I got in and I hit it in 2 years, and I was like, well, shit, I accomplished my overall goal, although it just doesn't look exactly like what I thought it would be. What am I going to do now? And that's when I turned my attention to training. So, fast forward to all that, I want to just keep doing my job, keep teaching, keep learning, keep training my fellow officers to be the best and most safe officers that they can. Um, and then I want to keep doing my business. I want to keep teaching and sharing my knowledge with others. Uh, I got heavy into competitive shooting, like we kind of touched on earlier. So I would love to keep pushing with that because um, I absolutely love it. It's when I obviously, like I said, I started shooting a long time ago, and I've been in SWAT for a long time. And within the law enforcement community, I thought I was, you know, a hell of a shot, and my ability and my knowledge was, again, I thought was so much higher than everybody else's or a lot of other people. And that's just judged on going to different classes within the SWAT community. And then I stepped one time into a USPSA match and saw what civilians can do with a gun. And I was humbled immediately. And I realized that, you know, that guy's an insurance claims adjuster, but he just ran that course, shot 15 targets and 3 steel targets in under 15 seconds, amazingly, with accurate hits. And I ran the same drill with the same targets and did it in like almost 30 seconds with marginal hits. Uh, I was like, wow, uh, this is unsat. I'm nowhere near as good as I thought I was. And um, that turns off a lot of cops when they see this world and they think, it's not real. No one's shooting back at you. But That's not what it's about. What competition teaches you is something that tactical knowledge will never teach you, and that's speed and accuracy, when it's time to do it, performance on demand, which is why SF units and tier one guys are all learning from competition shooters. You know what I mean? Like they're at a point now where they're like, I don't want other tactical guys to teach me. I'm bringing in the best and fastest competition shooters in the world, and I want them to teach me. So, you look at DevGru, you look at Delta, you look at all those dudes at the really, really tippity top. They're all learning from USPSA world champion shooters. So, my whole mission now is to take the tactical world and the competition world and blend it together to make the best, tactical athlete that you can be, because like I said, the competition feeds my tactical world, or will only keep me safer and better in my everyday job, and I can pass that on to other officers.
Fuck yeah. Good training. And yeah, don't get hung. Yeah, I mean, people get hung up on comparison. I'm big. I mean, I love it. I love comparison. Right? I never would have accomplished the things that I did if I wasn't comparing myself to other people and trying to be as good as them or better and things like that. People always, oh, it's the thief of joy. I was like, no, it's not. Fuck no. Fucking let it motivate you. Just don't be envious or
Healthy.
of yeah. And so, but you say that like the insurance salesman, he can hit all these targets. Like, fuck, good for him, man. I can throw 150 pounds on my back and like walk for a really long time. Like, everybody's got their thing. You're never going to be the best at all these. You can try, and you should try to be the best at a lot of different areas, but you're not even going to get to be the best at one. How rare is that? Like, you're not going to get there. Um, there's always somebody smarter, faster, stronger, better looking, better hair. There's always somebody with better hair. That's unbelievable. And you can't be the best at everything, but you can try. And that's really the goal: is not to let things eat at you. You work the best for you. Don't compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who somebody else is today. But let that motivate you and drive you to be better and be the best that you can. What do you got? Oh, that's
You
green
said
for
try to
me.
be the better person than you were yesterday and kill your clone. That's kind of like a catchphrase or something that I didn't come up with it at all, but I really, really like that concept. Kill your clone, be better than you were yesterday. If the person you were yesterday is going to come after you and either try to kill you or outlift you, or you know be a better pitcher than you or a better salesman than you, can you beat them? Can you be better than who you were yesterday? And that's like my whole training philosophy is, I'm not in competition with anybody but myself. But if I'm going to compare myself to someone, like, it's good. It should motivate you. It shouldn't turn you off. If you turn around and go, oh man, you can lift 150 pounds and walk 3 miles, and I can barely lift 150 pounds, that shouldn't turn you off. That shouldn't be like, who lifts 150 pounds? That's stupid. That should be like, I want to be like you. I want to do that. So
Ah, there's team. That's why there's very few solo operators in the world. Very few. Contrary to fucking movies and shit, everything's done in a team. Everybody's got different strengths, and that's what teamwork's really where the shit gets done. And if you are a solo operator and you're listening to my show, I really appreciate you. Keep up the good work. Um, so, fuck, man. All right. Well, that's awesome, man. You keep on with the one shot defense and keep that going and teaching people good information, a good positive message. And we'll see where things go. And hopefully, a few years, you come back on the show and we'll see how things have progressed. And you got all kinds of viewers and instructional videos, and you're making your own, I don't know, opinion pieces and shit like that. So we'll see where things go. I, uh,
I would love to,
I think
bro.
that's a good
That'd be
point.
great.
I think that's a good point. I got 5 questions here that I ask everybody, and then I'll cut you loose. How's that sound? All right, man. What is your response to thank you for your service?
I mean, at the end of the day, uh, pleasure was mine, really. But I just say thank you and humble about it. And I really do appreciate when people say that to me because, my service was very different from a lot of other people's service as far as the way I went about it. Doing reserve time makes you feel one type of way, especially when you talk to active duty guys. Some they don't always look as highly on reservists as some reservists are. And I get it. You got shitbag reservists, like I said, they just exist. They're there to say that, you know, they get a paycheck or a uniform or whatever, or college. Um, but, uh, sometimes it makes you feel some type of way. But at the end of the day, like you said earlier, I raised my hand. I swore to protect the people of the United States and the Constitution, and I did what any other soldier did and would have done. So I do appreciate when people say that to me.
So the next one, I Googled Coast Guard Special Operations, right? And this is my show. I get to determine who comes on the show and not. And I have pretty loose rules since I'm the only member of the board and the advisory council. So it's a very quick vote in all cases. But you know, I guess Google their version, like what units in Coast Guard are special operations, and it's like, well, it doesn't specifically name any of them, but if they were, it was you fall into that category. And I was like, sure, Google, I agree with you. And now you're on here. So this qualifies you to answer the question. So this is a bonus question. We don't usually ask this one. Do you consider the unit you were in, and then I guess the TAC South thing, is that like as close as special operations you can get in the Coast Guard?
No, they. You're obviously very familiar with the tier system for special
Yeah.
operations. So think about the deployable specialized forces as tier two, right?
Okay.
Again, I'm not
Well, that's
comparing
still
us to tier
SAW. It's
two.
still
Please.
SAW. It's still SAW. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things in SOF of all that.
I don't want people to. I understand more than any other person I've watched and studied and talked to people, and I really wish if my dad didn't have cancer, I definitely would have wanted to go through the pipeline and earn, my tier, be a tier two operator like you and earn my place. But if I'm just trying to make the resemblance, you have the rest of the Coast Guard is that tier three, just everybody's in there doing somewhat different jobs. Then you have the deployable specialized forces that do a very unique and specific job that is most definitely above and beyond the regular mission of the Coast Guard. It's a whole different mission set. That would be a tier two. And then a tier one would be the MSRT, the Maritime Security Response Team. And they are like a SWAT team of the Coast Guard. There's an East Coast and a West Coast. They train with the SEAL teams on both sides constantly. Their main mission is anti-terrorism um, response in and near the continental United States. They can jump on Navy boats and go overseas and actually enforce anti-piracy and stuff like that. TACLIC does this as well because the United States can't arrest or detain people from other nations unless they have a federal officer on board, which the United States Coast Guard member is. So with just one Coast Guard member on board a boat, we can go overseas, make arrest for pirating, and actually arrest those people, detain them, bring them to a U.S. facility, and charge them in federal court. You cannot do that without a United States Coast Guard member. So, and again, those are high risk stuff. You're on fast boats, chasing down armed people, pirates and whatnot. And then, so those dudes I would consider the highest tier of the Coast Guard because they go through TALK, which is tactical operators course, and they do CQB shooting, rappelling, jumping out of helicopters, fast roping. They do all the high speed shit. So I would definitely put them up at the top tier. That's MSRT.
Well, we'll get one of those eventually. Since it's my show, you qualify anyway with the SWAT. So I make all the fucking rules around here as well. So you can answer this question. What is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
It's the strive to be better. It's I want to prove to you and myself that I can do it. I want to be better than you. I want to, you know, I don't think people should be okay with mediocrity. You shouldn't be like, I suck at that. Who cares? Like, if you've always wanted to juggle, frickin' teach yourself to juggle. If you've always wanted to skydive, teach yourself to skydive. You can do it. And it's one of those things that's that motivation that I think sets operators apart from everybody else. Everybody else is cool with just existing, but operators strive for that greatness. And I think that's the biggest thing that separates a true operator.
What is the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive or redo, and it wouldn't change where you are now?
That wouldn't change where I am now.
No, the pathway will still find us to sitting here having this interview. You'll still be at the same point in your life, just a different path to get there.
Well, I guess the only thing I could say to that is, obviously I never, you never know what could have happened back in the day. But if I would have went in to the military before being a police officer, because my original path that I saw myself on years ago was to go into the Marine Corps, become special operations, do my time. I didn't really know. I was a kid, so I didn't know if I was going to retire or get out. I didn't know that, but do my time in the military to get out and then be a police officer. That was my goal, my end goal after the military. Um, and with my dad getting cancer and me making the decision to basically do it the other way around, I definitely would have liked to have seen what may have happened if I joined the military first.
We'd still be sitting here doing this interview.
Hopefully, yeah.
What is the best piece of advice that you've received during your career?
Um, don't keep success a secret. I had a I had a chief tell me that, and you know, at first I was like, "What a cheesy thing to say," but then I started to understand what he meant by that. And when you when you start progressing through your career and you get these little things, like you pass, let's just say you get hired, that in and of itself is success. If I kept how I did it a secret to somebody who asked me, "Hey, how did you get hired with that agency?" That's Share that success, share how you did it. Um, keeping your success a secret is is just selfish, and you're not helping the people around you. You're not helping your friends. And at the end of the day, that's what this world I think lacks the most is you know brotherhood. Whether you're male or female, whatever, just we're all humans. We need to look out for each other. Some people would kill 8 humans to save one dog, and I love dogs. I have a dog. I'm a dog lover. But when we value other insignificant things over our fellow brothers and sisters, we've lost touch with humanity, and we're missing that. So that's kind of like be nice. Be don't hide your success. Share it with others.
I I would do some pretty horrific things to save my dogs. Um,
A lot of people would, I know.
I could do them. I possess the skills, but I don't know. There's some bad people out there also. I like that. So don't keep your success a secret. I do it with the show, and I do it now, and not in a bragging way. If I have a little thing, I'll do a little story, or I'll say, "Hey, fucking cool. Isn't this cool?" And I'll thank the people that helped me to get there. Because a lot of this shit I'm not doing by myself. It's other people helping me to get there and things like that. So you always you're always built up by the people that support you, and that's I like to show them that I'm doing as well as they think I should be doing. So that's like a a flip side of things that I like to hold up. So I like that. Last one, man. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
I was afraid of not knowing. I was afraid of letting that opportunity. pass by and then be an old man one day and go, man, I should have done that. I wish I did that. The worst thing is to fucking die and be like, I regret not doing X. Um, so I guess I was afraid of missing out, or I was afraid of not doing it. And I think that pushes into my life today where I guess I'm still afraid of not knowing. I guess that's always a fear, but I do what I want and I invest in what I like, and I'm very happy doing it. So what am I afraid of now, huh? The only thing I can say is I'm afraid to not live up to expectations, I guess. And what I mean by that is like what I think my dad would have wanted me to be, like letting people down around me. Um, I don't want to let people down. I try not to ever belittle people or make fun of them or crap on them along the way, because one day that person might be my boss. That person might save my life. That person might, give me an opportunity that if I was an asshole to them, they they wouldn't. So I don't know if that answered that question, but I don't know how to answer that. I'm not afraid of anything at this point. I don't want to let people down. I want to live
No,
up to expectation.
I figured that was what you were going to say with your dad, of just like, always you got that in your mind, because it seemed to be a driving factor um, through your career and then your service and into now, is whether you recognize it or not. It's that um, we trying to make him proud uh, and things like that. So that's kind of the direction I thought you'd go. I say the same thing. I'm not afraid of anything. I am afraid of being too old and alive to regret, to have deep regret, and to sit with it and not be able to do anything about it. Um, but I could like the fucking meteor could hit the earth, and I'd be like, all right, it's time to go. Like, all right, bye. Like, just weird. Like, I don't care. I don't really don't. But and so it's stuff like that, to just ruminate in that pain. That's kind of the mental struggle of things.
But I mean, that's a beautiful way to live your life at that point, especially doing what you've done, the things you've done, the career that you've had, your goals you've accomplished. It's very nice to be able to say, I am happy in my life right now. And, God forbid something crazy happens. It is what it is. Um, it definitely sucks to be like, I should have done that. I wanted to do this at that time. So that
Yeah.
ultimate regret is.
If from talking to people, I could have done all that stuff I wanted to do, and then there would have been other stuff. So I'm fine with the stuff I know, and that unknown whatever. Could I have done that? Yeah, I could have done that. Could I? I would have been great at this, but it's fine. Like, it's all fine. But it's easy for me to sit here and say that now. There was a lot of pain and a lot of stupid shit and a lot of booze to get to that point of ruining my life several times over. So it's easy if you're struggling with that now. It's easy for me to say. There's a lot of pain in between here and there to get to that point, to kind of just, I don't know, say it's okay. I think John McPhee, he said it, just let it go. Fucking, that does not apply to literally anybody. Uh, Most people cannot just let it go. But if you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, that's fine, I don't care. There's a lot of pain in that, statement, to just get to the point where you're okay, whatever. Um,
It's a good and a bad
so
thing. Sometimes carrying around a burden unnecessarily, does that damage. But if you can learn to let it go, certain things, not everything, there are certain things in life you can't let go, but if you could learn to let go of a lot of things, you're going to live happier because it won't eat at you all the time. At least that's what I feel. I, you know, if I fell down and hurt myself when I was a kid, my dad was like, "Cool, get up now, let's go, hurry up." So, I had that toughness built into me. So I'm very much of that mindset where I will help anybody with anything, but at the same time, you need to help yourself too. Like it comes from within. Uh, like you're not going to get help unless you want help, right? If you don't want the
Oh,
help, nothing will.
I've said many times on the show, people don't change unless they have to or want to. Yeah. So, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. How can everybody find you on the socials if they so choose?
You can look me up on Instagram. I pretty much what I do most of the my advertising and most of my communication and stuff is on Instagram, and that's at one underscore shot underscore defense. And then I also started a YouTube channel not that long ago, and that's just at one shot defense, and it's spelled out the number one, so ONE. Um, and then I also have a website at www.oneshotdefense.us, and I do training down here in South Florida. I would travel to do training. I can do everything from handgun, rifle, shotgun, CQB. I even have a medical aspect. I'm a first aid instructor. I did combat lifesaver, TCCC, all that stuff, or TECC, whatever they call it now. They changed it. I also have some, medical guys, some SWAT medics, as well as assistant chiefs and stuff that would help teach stuff like that. So putting together training packages, I can definitely do that as well. So that's the best way to find me.
Yeah, man. I will have links to your socials in the show description. Mike, you got anything for me?
No, brother, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk and do this with you. It was at a blast.
Really appreciate you coming on my little show here and hopefully get you a few more looks and we'll see where things go down the road. Well, bye, everybody.